Welcome to the Realty Rundown, the podcast that cuts through the noise of the real estate world. Your hosts, seasoned industry experts Nick and Nate, are here to guide you through the entire process. Each week, they're breaking down the latest market trends, decoding complex jargon, and sharing insider secrets you won't find anywhere else. Whether you're buying your first home, selling a property, or building an investment portfolio, we provide the clear, actionable advice you need to make your next move your best move.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Realty Rundown from the Nic Wyse Team at RE/MAX Results. I'm Nic Wyse, joined me as always by my co-host, Nathan Schwartz.
That's right.
That's the guy down there. Yeah. Today's episode, we're asking a big question, one that might throw some people, but what happens if institutional investors begin offloading their inventory? We've seen institutional investors buying hard over the last decade. We're talking about houses. What if they decide to pull back, and how would that shift ripple through the housing market?
Yeah, so this one's big. It can change pricing, competition, supply, maybe even the power balance in real estate. Let's dig in.
So before we get going, first things first, I just kind of want to define for everybody what an institutional investor is. Essentially, an institutional investor are organizations that pool and invest large sums of money on behalf of clients, members, or just their own accounts. Big money is what we're talking about here. Big corporations and big investments. So we've heard about these investors buying entire subdivisions, not right here in Elkhart County, but in Indiana, primarily down around Indianapolis. So they'll buy an entire subdivision and then they'll rent out the homes and they'll treat the houses themselves almost like a bank account. So, I mean, we're talking about sometimes like 300 homes at a time.
Yeah, I mean, this is the big time. So what would drive large investors to sell if it's not for, I'm sure it's not for public benefit.
Yeah, they're not trying to help us. It's always, it's big money, so they're always trying to help themselves. There's several triggers that could lead them to start selling their inventory. One is declining rental yields. We've seen rents leveling or even dropping in many markets. So if they're not getting as much as they want from that investment, think of it almost like you put money into a savings account. It's going to pay an interest rate. They're not getting an interest rate, they're getting rent. So they buy a $400,000 home and they're going to want to rent that out for enough that it makes sense. They're getting enough return on their investment. When those numbers start dropping, those yields drop, they move out. Part of that is rising interest rates. A lot of these times, these are commercial investors, so their commercial loans are often shorter than a typical residential real estate loan. They're not 30 years. Sometimes they're 5 years. So when those rates expired, they bought it 6 years ago, those rates expired, they've got to refinance it. Well, they're not refinancing it for what they did 5 years ago. So those interest rates can make a big difference. It decreases their ability to leverage. And then finally, regulatory pressures, tax law changes. Those are big time too. And really overall, one of the key factors as we know it, the softening of the housing market overall. So in 2024, the numbers are in, we saw a record setting amount of institutional investors. They made up almost 11% of all home sales. It's the highest that's ever been recorded.
That's crazy. I actually didn't know that stat. That's pretty cool. So if they begin to sell in mass, what's the immediate effect that we're going to see here?
Yeah, so not all bad, right? Like we're going to talk about it all, but one of the good things that can happen is more inventory comes onto the market. If they're selling, that's more homes available. So it can further relieve some of the tight supply pressure that we faced in so many places, especially here in Elkhart County, where the estimates are that we're still some 25,000 homes behind what we need just to get people into homes at affordable prices. So it can help relieve that. It also gives buyers more negotiating room. Obviously, if there's 10 homes on the market that suit their needs as opposed to 1 or 0
right.
or 2, they've got some negotiating power now. It's giving some power back to the buyers, balancing that market out, which we have not seen for so long. And that can also reduce the upward pressure on home prices. Not necessarily a great thing, but again, stability. In housing, sure, we want everything to sell right away. We want it to sell for crazy amounts. That's good for us. It's good for the seller. Not so great for the buyer until they go sell. Then it's good for them. But really, we want stability. We don't want home prices going up 17% in a year, or even really 7%. Yeah. That's too much. That's inflationary. So it can help reduce some of that pressure on home price projections. And finally, the effect is not going to be uniform. I just want to say that, there's hot spot markets with strong fundamentals. They're going to continue to hold steady. They're going to continue to see gains. I do think in Elkhart County, we have a pretty hot market overall. I think it's held really well, despite the fact that the RVs have not come storming back yet. If and when they do, watch out. We might really need more homes on the market, more than we even realize now, if that dynamic changes.
Yeah, that's a good point. So could this change who controls the market dynamic?
Yeah, potentially. So, right now, big investors compete heavily with individual buyers. And by competition, I mean, they're the ones out there that can make an all cash offer, right? They can waive inspection, do all these things that maybe makes it difficult, for an individual buyer to do that. So if these big institutions back off, individual buyers are going to regain some of their bargaining power, as we mentioned. But keeping in mind, many of these investor homes are all held by smaller operators. They're not all these big, hey, we bought a subdivision, 300 homes at a time. A lot of them are moms and pops, so when we say institutional, it's not all just huge money. It's good money. We've got plenty of people out there. We've got clients, we've got friends that they buy and sell houses all the time. So, it's some of them. If they start unloading, it's not going to make a huge ripple in the market, but it does change things. Just keep in mind, it's not always the mega portfolios that we're talking about.
Yeah. So kind of transitioning, what about transitional risks here? What could go wrong?
So, yeah, the downside, right? Flooding the market. If we get like a flood of homes on the market, it could literally push home prices down, and it could do it sharply in some areas. I'm looking at you, Florida, where Florida has already kind of experienced some of this. If the institutional investors start dumping their condos, their Airbnbs, it can really signal some bad things for them. The condo market in Florida already not doing well. So if we see this trend continue or increase, it can really hurt some of those areas where the demand is weaker. Institutions may not want to undercut too much. That's the other part of this. Their returns are typically, they have a floor that they set, and they're like, hey, we're not going to go below this. So they'll keep running them out as long as they can get what they want. So they're not always the most motivated of seller. And then lastly, I guess it's always, you got to keep in mind that they may just turn around and sell to other investors. Sometimes you have that. Somebody's aging out. Through their lifetime, they've bought homes. They bought 50 homes. It's amazing sometimes. I wish I could, I'm not going to say any names, but I have met people and I could put my arm around them and you'd be like, how many homes does this guy own? And they're like, 0. Wrong. Like, he's a multimillionaire. Like, it's always like, don't ever judge the guy that, comes into the restaurant with overalls, and looks like he just got off the tractor. Maybe he did. But maybe he also just went out and serviced his 50 homes that he owns. Yeah. But a lot of those times, those guys are turning around. They're aging out. They're getting ready to retire. They want to reap the rewards of what they've worked for. They're turning around and they're selling to other institutional investors, not necessarily huge corps, but they're looking for a buyer who will just come in and buy everything. So sometimes it doesn't relieve all the pressure that we're looking for as far as home ownership access. Yeah.
So kind of switching gears a little bit, some more advice for buyers and sellers. So what should buyers and sellers do if they see investor sell-offs begin?
Yeah, if they see them. So if they haven't really begun here, they've begun in other areas. So if you're listening and you're down in Indianapolis, you're probably already experiencing this. But buyers here, Elkhart, LaGrange, St. Joe, just get ready. Monitor listings. Stay in touch with your agent. Say, are you seeing this? Are you seeing this? Are we seeing more of this? Because we are seeing it. Are we seeing more of this? So just monitoring your listings. Stay pre-approved. Be ready to buy is what that means. Those pre-approvals, as we mentioned, they don't last forever. Make sure you're always in contact with your lender. And then don't wait too long for prices to drop. I know that's the temptation here. You've heard some of the things we've said. You're like, oh, institutional investors are going to sell. The prices are going to go, half. No, they're not. Like, if they go down, we're talking probably a very small margin. So don't wait too long. Give yourself that opportunity. If you got the home and if the money makes sense, don't wait. Buy the home, please. Trust me, you will be happy in the long term. Yep. So if inventory comes back, there's going to be competitions. That's one thing to remember for a buyer side too. More people are going to come into the market. So that's going to help push prices up. For sellers, don't panic. Don't slash your price prematurely. Make sure you're priced realistically, especially if we see this dynamic growing, because it means buyers are going to be more discerning. They're not going to be so willing to overpay for a property just because it has whatever amenity they want. They're going to want the bigger picture. They're going to want things updated, or they're going to want the price to be right. And then agents, if you're listening, if you're an agent out there, again, just make sure you're positioning your portfolios to handle this shift. Help your sellers to time things right as best you can. Help buyers be ready to pounce when inventory opens. and just keep your nose to the grindstone. Pay attention to what's going on out there.
Yeah, it's kind of like watching a Black Friday sale. All the big stores drop inventory all at once suddenly, and now you have the chance to, score some deals.
Yeah. You just got to be ready to sprint as soon as they open the doors, right?
Yeah, don't get trampled.
Afraid to push grandma out of the way and go get that TV that you want. Don't push grandma. I'm kidding.
Don't push her to zeke it out of her hands.
Yeah, grandma may push you out of the way. I don't know. Better be working out like Nate does. I'd probably get pushed out of the way by grandma. Nate, you could just pick up grandma and take her with you, and everybody gets
This is also true, yeah. Oh, man. Well, I'll sum it up real quick, but institutional investors could begin selling their inventory because of softer rent markets, rising costs, or changing returns. If they do, we could see some more listings, more negotiating power for buyers, and potential moderation of price growth, though it won't necessarily be across the board like we discussed. How the sell-off is managed is certainly going to matter.
Yeah, that's well put. I can't really add anything to that, Nate. You nailed it. Guys, I think we're going to wrap it up there. A little bit longer this time. I know I try and keep you under 10 minutes. We went over because I always go on my little diatribes, but I think we did good overall. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. Got some good content, got some good information. You can always reach out to us if you have any more questions, but that is it for episode 41 of the Realty Rundown. If you're in the market, you want some help making sense of all these shifts, call us. We're here to help you adapt. So, guys, until next time, remember, Nick knows, get yourself wise replies.
Thanks, guys.
See you, everybody.
And that's a wrap on another episode. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you had as much fun as we did. We love sharing real estate insights, but as you can see, we also love to have a good time. This energy and passion is what we bring to every client. Buying or selling a home is a huge deal, but it doesn't have to be stressful. With the right team, it can even be fun. Ready to make your move? Let's connect.